PopUp Podcast. PopUp Podcast.
Welcome to PopUp Podcast, presented by the Escondido Public Library. We'll be speaking with Captain Eric Skaya of the Escondido Police Force during National Night Out, a program that seeks to have the community interact with local law enforcement.
Talking to the microphone.
Sasha?
Sasha, how are you? My name's Eric. Sasha's
good.
a beautiful name. I like that.
Thank you. So what made you want to be a police officer?
What made me want to be a police officer? This is an easy question because people ask me that a lot. When I was little, probably a little older than you are, in middle school, when I was in middle school, I played a lot of soccer and I played a lot of baseball. And here in Escondido, I grew up in Escondido. And some of my coaches were police officers. So my soccer coach was a police officer and my baseball coach was a police officer. And I remember admiring them and really liking those people, and they made me want to be like them. So from the time I was in middle school until this day, that's why. Because I had a lot of positive role models in my life, and people I looked up to were police officers. And the fire department, that's a dirty job, and they have to drive those big red trucks, and it just doesn't look like fun to me. Because I thought being a police would be more fun than firefighter.
So how do you get your German Shepherd?
How do we get our German Shepherds? They actually come over from Europe. So all the police dogs you see are born in a different country. Okay, and then they come over here, and then we send the police officer, who is called a dog handler. The officer that uses the dog is called a handler. They get to pick their dog, and they pick their dog based off of the personality of the dog, and how big is the dog, and how fast is the dog, and how smart is the dog. Because a police dog needs to be smart, because the police officer has to tell them what to do all the time. You have to teach them to find. We might have to teach them to find children like you. If you get lost, the police dog, I don't know if you saw it out there, your mom could give us a shirt, your old shirt, and the police dog will smell your shirt, and it could go find you because it can smell you. A dog can smell thousands of times better than we can, so they can really smell it from a long way away. So police dogs are awesome. They're great. So they come from Europe. Some of them come from Germany. Some of them come from Belgium. Can I ask you a question? How old are you?
9.
You're 9? Wow. So where does that put you? 4th grade? That's awesome. What school do you go to?
The Heritage K Charter by the post
Very
office.
nice. Very nice. You know where Central School is? Have you heard of that one? How about Conway School? Have you heard of Conway? No? Well, that's the ones I went to here in town. I don't think they had your school when I was a little boy. I think that's probably newer. Well, thank you for your questions. They were really good. Thank you for being here. Do you have any other questions? Or?
Isn't it heavy carrying all that gear, like when you have to?
It's about 35 pounds. So between my vest and my duty belt, which has all the tools I need for my job, it's about 35 pounds that I have. It is heavy, and when it's hot like this, it's not very comfortable. But you get used to it.
I have one last question.
Okay.
When you're not doing like your police officer job, what do you do?
What do I do at home?
Uh-huh.
I coach. My son plays baseball, and I coach him and his team. So when I'm not being a police officer, when I'm at home, I coach baseball, Little League, because I remember, how much I cared about my coaches when I was little. So it makes me feel good that I get to teach kids how to play baseball. It's fun. It's a lot of fun too, and it's good exercise.
My name is Yvette.
Hi, Yvette. I'm Eric. How are you?
Good.
How old are you? I get to ask the first question. How old are you?
6. Yo guys, somebody's stealing money, you guys arrest them?
Well, that's a good question. If someone steals money, do we arrest them? So you need, whoever's money it is needs to first call the police, and they have to want that person arrested. So if you have the owner of the money who's willing to go to court and willing to what we call prosecute. Prosecute means we hold whoever stole the money, we give them consequences. So if the victim is willing to give the thief consequences, and then we know they know who who did it, and then if we find them, yes, we will arrest them.
And you guys put when you guys arrest them, they have a toilet.
And if we arrest them, do they have a toilet? Yes. So we do. We have a holding facility at the police department where we put the people we arrest, and every one of them has a toilet, a sink, and a bed, and a phone.
Of what? Is it a fake phone?
No, it's a real phone. So they can call their parents, or they can call their friends, or they can call their lawyer, they can call Domino's Pizza, they can call whoever they want, and then we let them do that.
But what if they call pizza? They let you...
Yeah, if they're hungry, we feed them. If we arrest someone and they say, I'm hungry, and if they're at the police department, we feed them.
What?
Sometimes...
Pizza,
hamburgers, you know.
I hope they have a healthy choice.
A healthy choice, I know.
Because if you don't eat healthy, you don't get strong.
That's true. But when they go to the bigger jail, they have all sorts of real meals. They have healthy choice meals there.
They don't let you out?
Once your consequences are done, they let you out.
What if somebody comes to pick you up?
If someone comes to pick you up and your consequences are over and they say you can go home, then you get to go home.
And with your mother or father?
Whoever you want. Yep.
Do you guys arrest kids?
That's another good question. We don't arrest kids unless they're over the age of 14. Because the law says that, how old are you again? 6? A 6-year-old is a kid and sometimes doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. Because you're 6 and you haven't lived enough life to be able to tell yourself whether that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. But if you're 14, then I think we know that when a 14-year-old knows the difference between what's good and bad and what's right and wrong. So a 14-year-old would be held accountable.
My dad showed me how to do something right or wrong. If it's a good choice or bad.
Your dad taught you choices, good choices and bad choices. Well, that's good of your dad. I'm glad. I wish all the dads would do that.
Would you encourage or discourage one of your children to become a police officer?
That's a great question. I would empower my kids to do what makes them happy. You know, and if being a police officer is that career that's going to give them fulfillment and make them happy, I would support it 100%. I would, warn them that it's going to be nights and weekends and working holidays, and and it can be dangerous. But it's a fun job. I have no regrets over the last 20 years. My wife's been a trooper and taking the kids to soccer when I was working, and and the family missing me at Christmas. Those things happen. But if that's what you want to do, I'd fully support it. However, I would secretly try and push them towards something more exciting, like being a nanotech engineer, something like that. But either way, I'd be thrilled.
Can you share what's the most intense situation you've ever been in, and how has it impacted you in your career as a police officer?
2006, I believe, when we had the May Day riots. and there was a big social, uproar. People walked out of school, and there was hundreds and thousands of people walking through the streets, and it was very intense. And the police officers are always put in a position where we want them to be able to speak their mind, and we want to be able to hear their message, whatever it is. We just want the community to be safe, and we want to protect people's lives and property. And I remember that day being very chaotic, and I remember people crossing the line over trying to voice their opinion, and it went over into the criminal realm where now people's lives were at stake. And I remember having to get involved with taking people into custody, having to use significant force on people to do that, and of course everyone's videotaping you, so it's nerve-wracking, but you just have to remember that everybody's different. Everybody is emotional in a situation like that. You have to remember that. You have to be professional at all times, and as long as you have the law and your policy backing what you're doing and the best interests of the community, then it'll work out okay. But I just remember that day seeing all the kids walking out of high schools, doing some of the things that they're doing. It was just nerve-wracking to see your community have a day like that. But luckily, it hasn't been a day since then. But that was a bad day.
Podcast.
How do you get over the fear, not only for your safety, but the safety of friends and family?
What it comes down to is the training and the experience, and the police academy as well as the field training officers give you the training, they give you the tools, they give you the mindset and the professionalism to not want those situations, but to expect them. And then when they happen, you're mentally and physically ready to overcome and win that problem. And the Escondido Police Department and really all the law enforcement agencies in the county do a phenomenal job at preparing their officers for those intense situations. Police officers die in the line of duty. It happens. Luckily, we've never had a police officer in Escondido die. But I fear that will change one day. And I fear that day. But I think that the reason we've been clean so far is our level of professionalism.
So I'm very curious about are they called plainclothes?
Yeah,
Police
detectives,
officers,
plainclothes, undercover.
How does one get into that role? Like what kind of training do those people have to have when it comes to essentially playing a part in order to do their job?
Well, you have to do a good job as a patrol officer. Everyone who's hired starts in patrol, and you have to do at least 2 years over there. And you have to do a good job while you're there. You have to impress your peers and your supervisors and the detectives who you're trying to join. So an overall body of your work, you have to show competency in search and seizure and the law. You got to be proficient at your job. You have to do, you can't park a police car under a shady tree all day. You have to go out and work. And then those that do that are rewarded. There's a testing process they put in for it with their supervisor giving them approval to do that if they're qualified. Then there's an interview process and a written test. And if they're selected, then and if there's an opening, then they could be selected and go to detectives. It's highly competitive. A lot of people want to do it. There's more people that want to do it than we have detectives. So unfortunately, we have to say no to a lot of good, hardworking patrol officers, because the community comes first. When you pick up the phone and you call 911, you're not going to get the detective. You're going to get the patrol officer in the uniform. So we have to have patrol well-staffed at all times, and that's just the way it is. So it's rare. Maybe once a year we'll have an opening in detectives, maybe once a year.
So have you ever had anyone ask for a police ride-along?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. We do police ride-alongs. In fact, you can go to the lobby at the police department and you can sign up for one, and they'll schedule one for you. It happens all the time. If you're a college student or if you're in the testing process to be in police, you'll get a ride-along faster. But if you're a community member, we have scheduled every week. We have opportunities for the community to come ride, and we do it all the time.
Pop, pop, pop.
How many bad guys did you catch?
In my career, I've been a cop for 20 years, and several hundred. I've arrested several hundred people over 20 years.
How many shepherd dogs do you have?
How many German Shepherd dogs?
We have 7 police dogs, and they're not all German Shepherds. Some of them are Belgian Malinois. You see the ones that have the really long hair? That's a Shepherd. The ones that have the shorter hair, those are Belgian Malinois. And we have some of each. And I don't know how many we have of each, but they're very similar. They're both big dogs. They both can smell really well, and they can find missing children. They can find evidence. They can protect the police handler. They can alert and bark when someone's hiding in a closet. So they're a very useful tool for the police department. It helps us do our job safer.
I was just very curious in how to become a police officer.
It's a good question. You have to be at least 21 years old, or 20 and a half at the time of application. You have to be a United States citizen. You cannot have been convicted of a felony, and that's it. If you're military, or you're college graduate, or you're bilingual, those things all help. But to be honest with you, we're always recruiting. If you've lived your life the way you would expect a police officer to do, and I'm not saying you have to be perfect. No one coming through is perfect. But if you've made very poor choices growing up, and a lot of those choices are recent poor choices, then it's going to be tough because it's highly competitive. We have probably 400 people applying for each open position, but 390 of those 400 people get disqualified based off of choices they've made in their life, and you could have made choices, like if you're older. How old are you?
24.
Okay, so when you were 16, if you made a poor choice, and you did your time, and you
Yeah, I've never been.
and now
to
you're
jail.
mature, or you've gone on with some life experience now. Maybe you take some classes or joined the military or did some community service. You're highly marketable. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
So we've hired people who have become great police officers, who've done drugs, 20 years ago, But if you do a lot of drugs and you've done drugs recently, you have to be able to show that you're mature.
You have to be off drugs for
Yeah.
at least 2 years,
Yeah,
huh?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And if I may ask, what would be the first step in that process?
It's online. That's the
Online?
way to do it. Yeah, we're nonstop recruiting. We probably hold tests 6 or 7 times every year now because we have people retiring. We have people. Cops get hurt all the time. Cops move, because their wife wanted to move back home with the family in Ohio or whatever.
Yeah.
You know how it is. It's a revolving door. So we're always recruiting and we're always hiring. So go online and fill out the interest form. They'll contact you when the next process is, and there'll be an online application. Fill out the application. I would recommend that you spend some time on it and you do a thorough job at the application. Don't lie or fib. Tell the truth. If you did something stupid 10 years ago, tell us you did something stupid 10 years ago, and move on. And that is your best chance to get hired.
Okay. Thank you very much, Captain.
No problem. Take care.
Have a great day.
Meet
You
you.
too.
On behalf of the Escondido Public Library, I'd like to thank Captain Eric Skaya and all the members of the community that came to speak with us. And National Night Out showed us that our local law enforcement and the people who live in our community are unified in making Escondido a better place.
Pop, pop, pop.
Podcast.